This ancient knowledge awakens the pineal gland and was hidden. Imagine for a moment that the world around you carries an extra layer, an almost invisible texture of presence and influence that most people walk through without ever noticing. According to texts found among the Nag Hammadi discoveries and passages preserved in the Gospel of Mary, there were instructions passed through small circles long ago, practical ways to shift perception so that what had been invisible could be seen. If the idea of becoming visible to what has hidden itself speaks to you, type visible in the comments and keep listening. I've spent years reading those fragments, tracing their language, and testing simple low-risk practices that the texts hint at. I'll be clear up front. The claim that Jesus himself taught a secret vision technique is a Gnostic claim documented in those non-canonical writings, not a statement about mainstream, orthodox scripture. I'm presenting this as exploratory material. Historical attributions, experiential reports from people who practice, and a careful, reproducible method you can try at home. It's not a medical procedure, it's not guaranteed. And it's not a substitute for professional care if you struggle with serious mental health issues. Here's the core idea. Perception is not passive. Our brain filters, simplifies, and files away vast amounts of sensory data so we can function. That filtering is a blessing most of the time, sparing us from overload. But those same filters can be exploited by subtle influences, entities described in Gnostic literature as that operate at frequencies or through behavioral patterns that are normally ignored by conscious sight. The text imagery is vivid. Layers, veils, powers that stealthily shape fear, desire, and distraction. Visibility undermines them when you bring deliberate, calm attention to what has been feeding in the dark. Their method is interrupted because you transform unconscious fuel into conscious information. Many spiritual traditions point to a center of inner sight. Esoteric teachers often name the pineal gland or the third eye as the correlating symbol, the anatomical structure in the center of the brain that, in folklore and mysticism, acts as an interface for inner vision. I will use that language as a map, not as a scientific claim. Some Gnostic metaphors aligned with the idea of a window within. Modern esoteric lineages adopt the pineal and third eye vocabulary to describe the emergence of subtle perception. Think of the pineal as a poetic shorthand for the capacity to notice what was previously screened out. So how do we approach this practically, without theatrics and without danger? The technique I'll teach is simple, low-tech, and safe. A soft gaze practice designed to expand peripheral awareness and invite the brain to include formerly filtered information into conscious perception. It's short, about 10 minutes a day, and designed to be done in mild, low light, not in total darkness or sensory deprivation. The goal is to cultivate a relaxed, watchful presence that can sometimes perceive those subtle signs people report, peripheral flashes, wavering distortions, or a sense of something moving just outside the field of focus. Practitioners frequently describe it as the world gaining a whisper of texture, like hearing static at the edge of a radio station, and then suddenly tuning in. Before I give you the step-by-step, a safety note. If you have a history of psychosis, schizophrenia, severe dissociation, or are currently experiencing intense anxiety or hallucinations, do not undertake perceptual expansion practices without consultation from a qualified mental health professional. Perceptual shifts can be destabilizing for some. Also, do not use substances or extreme sensory deprivation to try to force experiences. This is about gentle retraining of attention. Now, the practical method. You'll need a quiet room, a comfortable seated position, and a soft, neutral light source. Dim, but not dark. Aim for low ambient light that allows you to see shapes without harsh contrast. Think soft evening light or a shaded lamp. Avoid bright screens or flashing lights. Sit upright but relaxed. Feet grounded, hands resting. Keep your head level so your eyes are aligned with the horizontal plane. Breathe gently to settle. Full deep breaths aren't necessary, just a natural rhythm. Step 1. Soften the eyes. Rather than focusing sharply on a single point, allow your gaze to be diffuse. It's not the same as closing your eyes. Your eyelids remain open, but your central focus loosens. Imagine your eyes are a camera set to wide angle rather than zoom. The muscles around the eyes relax, and you feel less like a hunter staring and more like a witness who's letting the world approach. Step 2. Shift attention to the periphery. Without turning your head, let your awareness rest on the edges of your visual. Feel the places you usually ignore. Don't strain to see. Simply hold gentle attention there. You might find your mind wants to name, judge, or make a story about whatever appears. Let that habit go. Notice and return to the soft watching. Step 3. Breathe and hold for 10 minutes. Set a gentle timer if that helps, but don't watch the clock. The first few minutes tend to feel like settling. After a few sessions, longer subtle phenomena can arise. The recommended commitment is around 10 minutes a day for 7 days. Many practitioners report that repeated short sessions are more transformative than one long session. Consistency invites the brain to rehearse a new way of filtering. If something appears at the edge of an arc of light, a ripple, a shadow that doesn't belong to the room, here's how to respond. First, avoid reflexive fear or sudden movement. Maintain the soft gaze and allow the peripheral image to exist without pushing it into sharp definition. The practice isn't about confronting aggressively. It's about conversion of reaction into witnessing. A calm internal acknowledgement is usually enough. Mentally note, I see presence, or silently label the perception without dramatizing. Light shape, movement, vapor. Practitioners often find that when they hold steady awareness, the phenomenon either stabilizes into a clearer impression or dissolves. Either result is useful. If it stabilizes, you gain information. If it dissolves, the entity's feeding mechanism was interrupted. A common experiential pattern. Fleeting flashes that seem to move away as soon as you notice them, or a wavering, heat haze distortion that pulses when you attempt to look directly at it. That reactive behavior is important. In the Gnostic accounts, visibility provokes a response. The occultists, as described in those texts, are adept at exploiting distraction and projection. When you become a stable witness, they often withdraw or alter their strategy because the subconscious reactions they depend on, fear, shame, impulsive desire, no longer automatic fuel. Let me give you a few practical markers people report so you know what to expect. The first day or two, many people notice nothing dramatic, just a slight sense of world thinning or a softening of visual edges. Around days 3 to 5, reports commonly include peripheral flickers, semi-transparent shapes that appear like smoke or heat ripples, quick movements that reconnect to places in the room, or a sensation of being watched from a corner. A minority of practitioners describe more vivid encounters, forms that shift into symbolic shapes, or a distinct emotional tone that doesn't originate from any human in the room. Again, treat these as subjective experiences that many report, not as guaranteed events. Anchors are central to the next step. In the Gnostic cosmology, places in the world can function as lodgings or nodes for subtle influence corners, where attention habitually falters. Objects that accumulate charged emotion, or routines that open a channel for manipulation. You can apply your newfound visibility to find and neutralize these anchors. Walk your living space slowly with soft gaze, scanning peripheries rather than staring directly. Look at how light falls across doorways, the way reflections collect, the corners behind furniture where light rarely reaches. When you sense something, an eddy of movement, a static shadow, acknowledge it calmly. A simple statement of presence spoken softly or formed mentally works. I see you. You are not feeding here. No need for grand rituals. The point is to register consciously so the anchor loses the unconscious momentum that sustains it. There is a moral and social dimension to this work. Visibility confers responsibility. You are reclaiming the freedom to notice. That doesn't license public accusations or confrontations. If you notice a pattern of influence around another person, someone who habitually seems drained, reactive, or entrained to fear, compassionate boundaries and quiet support are the right response. You might offer presence, suggest rest, or encourage professional help if needed. Do not point and declare someone possessed in public. The practice is about re-establishing personal sovereignty, noticing, neutralizing what affects you, and choosing how to respond with humility. Let me pause for another mini hook. The surprising part is that you do the opposite of what you expect. Instead of narrowing focus to catch the unseen, you relax and widen your perception. That widening is key to bypassing the brain's default filter that categorizes subtle signals as noise We should also grapple briefly with the theological frame. In Gnostic literature, the archon or archonti is a metaphoric figure sometimes depicted as an intermediary force, sometimes as a hierarchical ruler enforcing freedom. The demiurge appears as a creator that traps consciousness within layers. These are symbolic cosmologies that attempt to describe human experience alienation, compulsion, and the sense of being manipulated by patterns beyond immediate control. When modern seekers map these images onto the pineal or the third eye, they're often making a psychological and phenomenological connection. The emergence of inner sight undoes the amnesia those mythic images describe. Remember, these are interpretive frameworks, not statements of universal dogma. I mention them because they offer a language for understanding why visibility matters. A caution about the pineal language. Many esoteric teachers treat the pineal gland as the literal organ of inner sight. From a scientific standpoint, claims that it directly enables vision into non-physical domains are speculative. Use the pineal as a symbol and a focusing metaphor rather than as an anatomical cure-all. If you want to bring the idea into practice, imagine that your attention moves toward an inner aperture teeny and luminous, then assume a verified physiological mechanism. After you've done the soft gaze practice for several days, you'll likely want to integrate it into daily life. A useful rhythm is morning and evening microsessions of 2 to 5 minutes each, with a 10-minute formal session in the evening when light is softer and the mind is more receptive. Keep a simple log note: the day, time, and any impressions. Patterns are valuable, but so is mundane restraint. Overanalysis can turn a practice that increases clarity into an obsession that fractures it. Let me describe an example of integration that illustrates ethical use. A practitioner I know noticed, through peripheral practice, a recurring dull pressure near her laundry closet, the place where she often felt inexplicably drained after doing chores. She acknowledged the feeling, then spent a few nights holding soft gaze near that corner while calmly reciting a simple affirmation. This space is mine to use in peace. Over several sessions the pressure diminished. She then rearranged the closet, cleared old items that had emotional charge, and invited friends to help. This is not a magic cure. It's practical attention plus ordinary action. Visibility gave her the information. Action closed the loop. Another important aspect is the reaction of those subtle entities when observed. Many accounts say that because these influences operate by bypassing conscious awareness, being directly noticed undermines their method. You can imagine a parasite that thrives in darkness. Light, in that analogy, simply alters its behavior. People report two main responses: withdrawal or escalation. Withdrawal means the presence dissolves or recedes. Escalation means the influence may attempt a different tactic, a more subtle whispering, emotional provocation, or a shift to affect someone else. If you encounter escalation, noticeable increase in intrusive thoughts, agitation, or de-stress, stop the practice for that session, ground yourself with breath and simple physical tasks, and consider talking with a trusted guide or mental health professional. A short note on community and secrecy. Gnostic groups historically guarded certain teachings because they believed unprepared ears could misapply them. That cultural memory explains some of the language of hidden knowledge. But secrecy alone doesn't validate a practice. The modern ethic I advocate is transparency paired with discernment. Share your experiments with trusted friends who can offer sober feedback. Avoid social media dramatization of intense experiences, which tends to encourage sensationalism rather than steady integration. You might ask about timing. Why 7 days? The number is practical and symbolic. Practically, a week is short enough to sustain focus and long enough to start altering habitual attention patterns. Symbolically, many traditions use a 7-day cadence for initiation or rhythm. The key is consistency rather than numerology. If 7 days suits your schedule, use it. If you need more or less, adapt. The practice is a training of attention. The brain responds to repetition. As you pursue this, cultivate humility. Seeing differently does not make you infallible. Perceptual shifts can be colored by expectation, fear, or desire. Test your impressions with simple experiments. Compare notes with a sober friend. Check the objective conditions of a room and ask whether what you perceived could be explained by ordinary factors like light angle, reflection, eye fatigue, or sleep deprivation. Curiosity tempered by critical thinking is the safest path. We've covered method, signs, integration, and cautions. Before we close, one more short practice instruction you can try right now in 2 minutes. Sit comfortably and dim the lights just enough so edges soften. Soften your gaze and allow your eyes to relax without closing them. Bring attention to the periphery. Notice the ceiling edges, the corners beyond your direct focus, the faint motion of air. Keep breathing normally. If a spark of movement or a shadow appears, name it softly in your mind, movement, and return to the soft watching. 2 minutes is small, but meaningful. Repeated daily, it trains attention. Finally, a reminder about sources and meaning. The idea that Jesus imparted an inner vision technique comes to us through Gnostic texts and the Gospel of Mary, which were marginalized by institutional authority in early centuries and rediscovered in modern times. Those texts present alternative metaphors for liberation, seeing into the structures that obscure inner life. Whether one reads them as literal instruction, symbolic psychology, or mythic vision, depends on one's framework. I present these teachings as possibilities, tools for cultivating perceptual sovereignty, not as mandated doctrine. Too close visibility is a radical act. Bringing conscious attention to what was hidden interrupts habitual feeding mechanisms and returns you to a position of choice. Whether you frame this as waking the pineal, opening the third eye, or simply retraining attention, the outcome is similar greater sovereignty over what shapes your inner life. If you're willing to experiment, start with 10 minutes a day in low light for a week. Practice the soft gaze, log your impressions, and proceed with gentleness and discernment. If this message speaks to you, try the practice for 7 days and come back to share one brief note in the comments. Type visible if you started, or share one word describing your first impression. Before you go, a final practical safety reminder. If you have a history of psychosis, severe dissociation, or intense hallucinations, consult a qualified mental health professional before engaging in perceptual expansion practices. If you found this useful and want more guided techniques and historical context drawn from these texts, subscribe and click the notification bell for the next deep dive where I demonstrate the soft gaze in real time and unpack more passages from the Nag Hammadi corpus and the Gospel of Mary. Share this with someone who needs a quieter way to reclaim their sight. See with care, and remember, what is seen in awareness loses its power in secrecy.